Man City have crashed out of the Champions League. So frustrating. I can't believe it, really. We were better than Real Madrid in the Bernabeu. We were better than Real Madrid here. Had far more possession, far more shots on goal, far more bigger chances created. But we've blown big moments. It's a cup competition. And Man City didn't focus on big moments to get over the line. There never felt like there was belief in the squad. And especially when it went to penalties, it never felt like, even on the face of Mateo Kovacic, it never felt like there was genuine belief about getting past this Real Madrid side that are very, very limited. Now, you can sit there and talk to me about European heritage. You can sit there and say I'm crying and getting emotional. Obviously, Real Madrid under Ancelotti are a force. But do not talk to me about this Real Madrid side yet being that force, because they were there for the taking. Their link-up play is poor, very defensive, very counter-attacking. Yes, they've got some fantastic players. They went 1-0 up with a beautiful goal. Talk about all the goals and all the big moments. But obviously, as an overview, I'm frustrated because there's an opportunity there against a weak Bayern Munich in the next round. There's an opportunity there at Wembley for City, who've got such an incredible record at Wembley. Obviously, you rise with the tide. A few years ago, to be even competing in these situations as a European holder is an incredible feat. But as a footballing kind of perspective, as a sporting perspective, as a fan of Man City, I think City could have done a lot better in this game and across the leg. Didn't ever manage winning positions very, very well. Didn't even manage this game very well, in my opinion. We're going to break it down. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Would really appreciate it. The overview has to be, you've got to be able to push Real Madrid back. You've got to be able to nullify them early in the game and keep all the pressure on them. They're always going to break out. Of course they are. They've got some fantastic players. And the way they broke out early in the first half would be very concerning. And actually, I think opens the door for Arsenal and Liverpool and even the likes of Man United in the FA Cup, but those two in the Premier League title race, because you can see that this Man City side defensively are very slow, very, very slow. I thought City were going to outscore Real Madrid. I think at every stage in the Champions League this season, City have scored 3 goals at home or more, I think. So for Real Madrid to nullify City to 1 actually says that we can't outscore sides in the same way we did last season. Not the same side that won 4-0 last season, nowhere near. But defensively, nowhere near as frugal. And the way Jude Bellingham picks the ball out of the air, almost unmarked, is allowed to link up play, who I think Vinicius drives it across the face of the box for Rodrigo to tap in, who's been fantastic in both legs. Rodrigo and Vinicius are unbelievable players. There's a bit of me that thinks actually Rodrigo might be a better player than Vinicius overall. He's got big goals in him, and he has for the last couple of years, really, even since the comeback at the Bernabeu the season before last. This City defence looks tired. It looks like it lacks communication. I don't know why that is. Is the back four system, well, obviously it wasn't 4 centre-backs at the moment with Kyle Walker coming in, but does playing someone a little bit slow like Gvardiol at left-back bring the kind of intensity and the urgency. And someone that I was really impressed with today was Mendy at left-back for Real Madrid. That kind of traditional fullback, Carvajal, that traditional fullback, smaller, more diminutive, but have that pace to be nippy and get into big challenges and create a higher tempo defensive line. And the way that ball comes across for City, you'd be livid. It was Sunday League. I mean, it comes across 2 players. Ruben Diaz is nowhere near close enough to cut off the cross. The ball comes in, Ederson saves it, and then he taps it in again. If you look, I actually saw a replay from a fan view filming it, and it was almost like a comedy of errors. It was ridiculously poor defending. And look, I'm a City fan my whole life. I don't know what it says. I don't know what it means to be a European Cup holder. It's the first time we've ever defended a European Cup in the club's history. It never felt like City were defending the European Cup today. It never felt like this vigorous, aggressive battle. It felt a little bit flat. It felt a little bit dry. And that played into Real Madrid's hands, because if it's exciting, if it's bombastic, then obviously City are going to, rip away from Real Madrid and put punishment onto the Real Madrid backline. And it never felt like Man City could get back into the game. In the second period of the second half, there were some nice passages of play. There were some chances. Phil Foden had some chances. But early in that second half would be a little bit concerning. And concerning again for the Premier League title race, because there wasn't a calmness. There wasn't someone that was ushering in a level of kind of calmness or kind of tranquility, because early in that second half, Rodri had a shot on his left foot. Doku comes on for Jack Grealish, and it all felt so rushed. It felt like, obviously you're chasing a game, but it never felt composed. And the amount of times City under Guardiola, you know, 1-0 down and win 2 or 3-1 with just this kind of composure. There's a real lack of that today, a real lack of quality end product in every regard. We'll do player ratings throughout the whole 11, of course, at the end of the video, and let me know what you think so far. But that kind of composure. Look, Jack Grealish had a good game, no question about it. Bernardo Silva today, I think, got a little bit found out. The way he found little pockets of space and ran the game in the 4-0 last season, obviously that's been worked on. Obviously that's been addressed by Real Madrid. Someone like Bellingham and Camavinga linked up very, very well to close space. But the big one has to be Rudiger. Antonio Rudiger obviously didn't start in the game in the 4-0 against Man City. And Ancelotti didn't quite back him in that game for some reason. I think a lot of City fans were kind of happy about that, because Rudiger's got a very, very good record against City. Obviously more of a back five with Chelsea. But he's a very good defensive defender, very, very rugged, very, very physical. And City players don't like that. City players like those kind of half defenders, half old school defenders. They're a little bit fancy on the ball and you can kind of get around them a little bit. That old school brute centre-back, Rudiger, is that kind of guy, and he was absolutely superb today. And he kind of nullified those kind of half spaces the likes of Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva like to adopt. Let's talk about the City goal. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne. It kind of rebounds off of Mendy, I think it is. No, Rudiger. It rebounds off of Rudiger, which shows you that there is a mistake in him, despite what I just said. And it never felt like we were going to get over the edge and win it in normal time. And extra time, I always think 90% of extra time games, it basically, once it goes to extra time, it basically goes to penalties, doesn't it? I think, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 times. But De Bruyne has this chance that comes to him and he skies it, and it's just clutching at these moments. He's kind of it's almost choking a little bit. You can never discredit the winning mentality at Man City. I don't know where it's come from. I don't know if it's down to this kind of lack of flow throughout the side because of injuries. I don't know if it's down to maybe a depression of energy, this kind of release of energy after winning the treble last season, and then expecting a year on the City side to be at the same level. Sometimes you have to arrive from a lower place to get to that level of intensity. And City have kind of been a little bit flat. Obviously won the Super Cup, won the World Cup, Club World Cup. We're in for a treble upon filming this on the 17th of April 2024. That's an incredible kind of plateau. And then when Real Madrid come in, you kind of get shocked a little bit by how they're able to stick in, how they're able to not give in to Man City's pressure. And that's kind of shocked City today in a massive, massive way. And that's frustrating because I think City had enough opportunities to change the game and be dynamic. De Bruyne misses that chance. We'll talk about the penalties. What can you say? Modric misses, and then you got Kovacic straight after. You just think, oh God, why him? Even Ederson took a penalty straight after. Why Kovacic? He just looked like he was going to miss. He bobbles it into the ground. It's very similar to the Modric penalty itself. Why give it to Modric? Now, obviously, there's always hindsight in football, but football's a sport of such fine margins. If we don't talk about these things, then what can we talk about as football fans? Why put Kovacic so high up in the penalty rankings? I just don't get it. It's a little bit frustrating because you have so many players on the pitch. I think is Haaland still on the pitch? No, maybe not Haaland, but the Alvarez scores that penalty. Bernardo Silva actually kind of brings the energy down with that kind of floated effort into the middle of the net. But you got the likes of, Kyle Walker. Could he have gone a little bit earlier? Could Ederson have gone a little bit earlier? Maybe it's a lot of pressure, but he was able to take the third or fourth penalty. Ruben Diaz. Phil Foden took a great penalty. Why give Kovacic a new signing, someone that has no idea about the winning mentality of Man City? He's come from a club like Chelsea where there was, a lot of failure at that club. Let's be completely real. Why give it to him so early? I don't get it, and that would be a frustration. A marginal one, because you can always say hindsight's 2020, but I think giving Kovacic an early penalty like that, and it just sets the tone, doesn't it? It really sets the tone. Bernardo Silva has to be culpable as well. He knows what it means. Why can't he put that side? Why can't he put that bottom left, bottom right? He hasn't got the most power in the world, but he's got very, very good placement. Why can't he? I think he was shattered as well. I think he was just trying to I think he was thinking the keeper was going to expect something of power into the top corner of the top left, top right. Lupin, who actually was decent in this penalty penalty shootout even. So Bernardo Silva sets the tone. Kovacic ruins it for everyone, of course. We're going to do player ratings. Obviously, if you made it this far, make sure you subscribe. Would really appreciate it. Oh, frustrating. Was the 11 right today? I'm not entirely sure. It was as close to as good as possible, but John Stones, could John Stones have played instead of Akanji just to move that ball a little bit quicker? Akanji didn't have his best game today. Had a very, very good chance on his left foot. Let's start off with Ederson. I actually have to give Ederson some credit. I really do. He scores that penalty. It was a great save as well. It was a really good save from Modric as well. And I was actually saying in the penalty shootout on the club, I was saying, we're due an Ederson saving a penalty shootout. We're due an Ederson big moment. And I thought it was it, to be honest. I thought when Modric missed, I thought we just hold our nerve, especially at home. The back four was manageable today. I'd say Gvardiol had decent moments. Kyle Walker had decent moments. Definitely covering Rodrigo. Definitely covering at points Mendy popping on. And obviously Vinicius Jr., who had a little bit of a tangle with Kyle Walker and Jack Grealish at one point as well. Where would we have been if Kyle Walker had played the first leg? I blame this on Gareth Southgate. Ruben Diaz looked off it today. He looked really, really off it. And you can't blame him because this guy's at a level where he's going for success after success after success after success. He's approaching 4 in a row since he's even joined the club just after COVID. So his level, he looks a little bit off it. He looks a little bit leggy. I'd be looking to rest him for the next game. I know it's Chelsea. It's a huge game in the FA Cup. We'll talk at the end of the video where it leaves City, of course. Akanji as well. One of these two has to drop out for the next game. Ake has to come in and bring some fresh legs, who's also coming from injury concerns himself. But Akanji and Ruben Diaz didn't quite move the ball quick enough for me today. There was a lack of urgency, and the back line is conceding goals. The back line is being found out. The ruthlessness of the back line last season, for some people, one of the best back fours in terms of results we've ever seen. To get the second treble in English football, that is down to an unbelievable defensive rigidity that is not there anymore. Is Kyle Walker getting past his sell-by date? I'm not sure. I don't think he is. I think he's absolutely superb. But people are finding out how to play through this, particularly the two centre-backs, in my opinion. Gvardiol's been good, but he doesn't bring that energy that the likes of a Mendy brings, or the likes of, dare I say it, as Zinchenko used to bring. Obviously, I wouldn't swap them for the world. But at some point, you have to realise that you are sacrificing that extra level of speed and energy going around the flanks when someone like Gvardiol plays on one side of the pitch. You need it from the midfielders. We're going to talk about them in a minute because you need that urgency from midfield. Rodri was good today. I think too many times, this is his issue, that as a defensive midfielder, he's been asked to do so much. He's been asked to score big goals. He's been asked to be relied on to find the final ball, then do all the work, be the last man in midfield responsible for covering ground behind, for protecting the back four. And at times today, I didn't feel that he picked the ball up enough and shifted it left to right. At times today, there was a little bit of space in behind him. And when someone tells you how important you are to the club, he's probably my favourite player he's approaching ever in terms of what he's achieved for the club, in terms of what he did in the Champions League final against Inter Milan. That kind of level brings you up. It's a bit like when Kante won everything with Leicester City. We won the Premier League title with Leicester City. Suddenly people are saying he's a little bit more advanced, he's this and that. For me, it was always just you sit there and do your work and be a little bit humble about it. I'm not saying Rodri's not a humble guy, because he is. But too many times he's picking up the balls in advanced positions. Too many times he was running the channel with the ball. Not for me. Someone has to put an arm around him and maybe he has to do the work because of the level of other players isn't quite there at points. But Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva shifted. They came inside. There was a lack of width, and sometimes even Rodri had to pick that up. Kyle Walker isn't being asked to bomb on forward like he used to. He hasn't got the legs for it in the same way. So really, when you lose a game like this to Real Madrid, when you lose a game where you should be winning, we have so much more of the ball, so many more chances. You lose it because the extra man, the overload, those kind of cutbacks we see from City traditionally just didn't happen today. And that is very, very frustrating. The midfield of Jack Grealish, we'll start with him. I thought he was the best player out of the four midfielders today. I really do. He was dangerous, especially in the first half, drew so many fouls. We never really did anything with them, and that's frustrating in these kind of big games. We've got an FA Cup semi-final coming up. That matters. It's huge. FA Cup semi-finals at Wembley. Free kicks have to be taken more seriously and have to be worked on, and it has to be more danger from free kicks. And it never feels like the defensive line come up and influence free kicks and corners and balls into the box. Just never feels that way. So Jack Grealish's free kicks never really felt like they were doing anything on some level. Bernardo Silva, look, he had pockets today where he was really running the game and he was finding the ball, but the penalty, you have to really discredit him for the penalty. He's so much better than that. He really is. Even if you kind of roll it bottom left corner, just don't float it like that. You just get caught out. De Bruyne today, it's an interesting one. He scores the goal to get us back in it. He scores the goal that we should be scoring, the goal to win the game in normal time. Balls across the face of the box for Haaland, never found him. Cutbacks never got utilised by De Bruyne. It was just frustrating. I think his out ball today was rushed. There was a time where he kind of got the ball into Jeremy Doku. First time passing, he kind of just goes out of play. And you just think, Jeremy Doku, young kid, just been brought in. Can you play in the easy pass? Can you play in the pass that comes 4, 5, 6 links later in the passage of play? And De Bruyne rushed things too many times for me. Is that him trying to compensate for a lack of maybe physicality, a lack of form in the last couple of weeks? He's been exceptional since the turn of the year. But in this game, it felt a little bit rushed. Where's the composure from last season? Why isn't it happening? And maybe the City side echo and reverberate a lack of confidence from De Bruyne. When someone's big name player falls a little bit from grace, like Mohamed Salah at Liverpool, then maybe the rest of the players are looking around thinking, he's lost 5%. He's losing the ball one too many times, and it influences the rest of the side. That might be a debate, but you have to let me know. Phil Foden didn't occupy those spaces to shoot and score big opportunities. You have to look. I'm going to sit here and say Real Madrid were fantastic. They were compact. They had a line of 6 or 7 at points. Everyone was tucked in. Valverde was tucked in. Rodrigo was tucked in. Very, very hard to play against lines like that, and it's parking the bus. They took, but not a bad way. They deserved to do it. I wish City had done it in a better way with a 1-0 winning position. But Arsenal did it, and sides have done it this season. That's why City aren't clear favourites to win the title. Obviously favourites, but more points for City in previous seasons because sides have been a little bit less willing to be so defensive. And I think Real Madrid knew what it took, especially after the 4-0 last season. Erling Haaland, so poor. I would have taken him off earlier for Alvarez. He barely touched the ball. He had a great header in the first half, hits the crossbar, but he barely touches the ball. And yeah, it's all well and good saying he links up play, but you can get strikers that find half space. You can get strikers that come short and fill in behind and stretch the game in different ways and touch the ball a little bit more. You want a little bit more from Haaland. You really, really do. Doku came on. I thought it was a big moment for him. I think he's a little bit raw to be playing these games at this level, in my opinion. He's had an impact in the Champions League. He's had an impact in Premier League campaign games, of course. But it felt wrong how early he came on. And maybe I don't know enough about people's injuries and stuff, but it felt like when we equalised, we lacked control to get that second or third because Jeremy Doku was on, with all due respect. You know, he had a massive role in kind of getting us back in and creating space, and he's loved by City fans. I love the guy. But there's a lack of control, and that is frustrating. And you look at who comes off the bench. You know, Alvarez was fantastic, scores that penalty. Kovacic and John Stones as well. But it was just a little bit too late in the game for some of these changes, and it's just a squad that I think is a little bit flat. A squad that'll be very frustrated to not win the Champions League, because I think there's another opportunity there. Maybe next year with Mbappe, Real Madrid are clear favourites. Maybe next year Liverpool signs some crazy player and Liverpool win the Champions League. But this season it did feel like another one of those kind of, you win it and you try and win it again. It's like that little couplet of Champions League wins. Very, very frustrating. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you made it this far, make sure you subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I'll be talking about Arsenal tomorrow, which is another seasonless trophy for Mikel Arteta.